Chapter 5 The Crown Jewel Mounted Barrel. Holmes. That morning, I was standing next to the window of our room at Baker Street. Holmes. I called again, a crazy person walking in the street. What the sad scene. People should not let him go like that. Holmes lazily left the armchair, moved to the window, looked down. At that time was in February, the cold air. Weak sunlight of winter, snow fell last night still glistening, white and slippery. Deserted road, the only one man. He was about 50 years of age, body tall, burly, looks majestic, appearance in costume dark elegance with black heels, reviews trailers, shirt, hat brand new, clean pair of gaiters, ball and pantaloons fashionable, but in this moment the solemn style has disappeared. He ran like a madman, jumped, waved his arms wildly up and down, shaking his head and grimacing faces miserably. What happened to him? It seems he was looking for the house. I say. He would come here. Holmes answered, rubbing his hands together. Arrive here? Must he came to me to ask to solve a difficult problem? Looking at his symptoms, I knew. That, you see, where am I wrong? Indeed, the man threw himself to the door of our house. He was pulling the strings so hard that bell ringing loudly throughout the house. A moment later, he crashed into the room, panting mouth. His hands still waved furiously, but his eyes lurks a terrible despair. At first he could not speak a single word, just shaking and scratching their body hair as a picture verge of insanity. Then suddenly he plunged into the wall. We pulled his hand out of the middle of the room. Holmes sat down, support him a chair, then sat down beside him, grabbed his hand and said softly. He came to me to tell me his story, right? He was tired of having to scurry to teach him sit thinking until calm down. Then I'm happy to hear he presents the minor issues are making him mad. The man sat for a minute or two. Chin falling away, he is trying to curb attacks against him and touched his handkerchief, forehead sweat, dry lips, and turned toward us. Maybe he thought I was crazy right? I just think that he is having a major disaster, Holmes answered. And only God knows how big it. A scourge enough to get me to lose all reason. It was rushing my head with a sudden horrible. Moreover, not only myself involved in this case. Noblest character in this country may be suffering, but to find a peaceful resolution. Would you please calm down, and then tell me who he was, and what had happened? Holmes said. I am Alexander Holder, of the banking firm Holder and Stevenson, in line. Threadneedle. That's the name of the oldest capital contribution key executives of the company, ranks second bank in the capital. We curiously wait for him to tell the story. As soon as the police inspector told me, only the new Sherlock Holmes helped my grandfather went to Baker Street by subway, and from that I jog here, because with snow like this, carriages go surely the very slow. He also knew that one of the ways most beneficial to spend money is borrowed. In the past year, we gave the noble family of the huge amount loan, mortgage paintings, gold, silver or precious books. Yesterday morning at the bank, a clerk gave me a business card. Read the name written on it. I cringe. Because it is a part of the family's largest ethnic outlook. It is a great honor for me, and when he was going to guest, I seek to merit a sentence. But he interrupted me. Mr. Holder, I knew that his banks often lend money. Our bank lending normally, when the borrower has something to secure. I need an immediate £50,000. Of course, I still can borrow the amount you're 10 times bigger than petty cash, but I prefer to see it as a personal business that I have to solve it. With my position, indebted to others is something to avoid. Can I ask you to keep that money in how long? Monday came, people would pay me a large sum, and certainly I will refund him both capital and interest. But the most important thing for me is to have even 50,000 heap table. I'll take my money for his pocket without requiring loan guarantees, nothing. But my position does not allow me to get the honor. On the other hand, because of the company I work for, so I have the duty to ask you to take the necessary guarantee. I like that better, he said, and gave a black leather box, square. He had heard of beryl-jeweled crown. It is one of the most precious objects of European security of the country. Yes. He took the box. A splendid crown was placed on a pink velvet. It contains all 39 major real beryl gems, and its gold frame, the truth is priceless. The value of this crown is also counted at least £100,000. I'm willing to deliver it to him to hold as security. I took the precious box, looked at the crown, and then looked at the client. Does he doubt its value? He asked. No, absolutely not. Rather, I wonder. Why do I dare to assign him to hold such a precious, right? He do not worry at all. He thought that I would act like that, if I was not absolutely sure it can be recovered in 4 days. This is just a procedural issues only. According to him, this material ensures enough? Nobleman asked. Enough. Mr. Holder would like him to understand that I trusted his privacy, and especially his sense of caution, make him understand that a big scandal would happen if something happened to it. A serious scratch is also nearly equal to the loss of it. He just think around the world without any beryl gems can match with this gem. However, I still delivered the crown to him to hold. Monday morning, I'm going to take it personally. I called cashier and ordered him to the spot £50,000. However, when left alone with the box, I'm not out of fear at the thought of the great responsibility that weighs on my shoulders, and began to feel regret when he received this national treasure. But it was too late, cannot do anything other than that. I went to put it in the oven and continue to work separately. When evening came, before going home, I'm not so foolish self to the office in such a precious object. Every year the bank's vault had been broken already. And if my iron cabinet broke? If the crown disappear? No. Cannot let that happen. I decided to take it home, and then stored carefully in the treasures of the desk on the second floor washrooms. Now, Mr. Holmes, I need to tell you about the people over in my house. I have 2 younger servants, were sleeping outside the house. 3 maids helped me work for many years, and they are very virtuous. 1 other maid's, named Lucy Parr, the new few months, but she has a good nature. It's a pretty beautiful girls, alluring many lovesick boys occasionally to loitering around my house. Those are the servants. And my family is not how many. I am a widower, and only a single son, named Arthur. He is both a disappointment for me. Mr. Holmes, when my wife died, I put all the love for it. I never refused him a thing. Of course, I intend for it to prepare my successor at the bank, but it has no complaints and no fancy business. Its personality is not pure. Of full age, it joined the aristocratic club, and became a close friend of the wealthy aristocrat. Luxury, killing time by playing games, luxury food. Together with them, he threw the money on the gamble and the horse race. It frequently asked me extra money, in addition to the monthly benefit amount, to pay debts. More than once it tries to break with the club in danger, but which always, George pulled back. Benwell roll it back to the group. The truth, I'm not surprised to see George Benwell huge influence on Arthur. He was older than Arthur, a man of nobility, true gentleman, and handsome. However, sometimes recall a few words of contempt. Lewd Silver and George Benwell, recalled some crystallize his demonic monster. I felt doubt. This man could hardly be trusted. Mr. Holmes, that evening, in the living room, I told Arthur, and Mary heard the story of the crown, but did not disclose the name of the owner of the item. After finishing the coffee maker, Lucy had left the room. Sure, I remember how, but I do not remember that the door has been closed or not. Mary and Arthur proved extremely excited and asked to see the crown. I refuse. -3 take it? Arthur asked. In the third own desk. The hope this house will not be stolen. Visit tonight. paper table was locked. Even matter, Arthur said. Any old public keys can open it out to be. As a child, the child had opened it with the key of the closet in a room away fixtures. Arthur comes to disabilities or anything, and I usually do not pay attention to what it says. However, that night, he followed me to take in my room with a very serious expression. "Accept 3, could you give me 200-300 pounds is not?" Arthur said, his eyes looking down. Not. 3 were too broad for the temple about money then. I rebuked replied. 3 were very kind to me, but I needed 200 pounds, if not, I will never show my face possible any more to the club. It's a very good thing. Yes, but there are 3 not want my sons to be a man of honor, but lost. You must look out for the money, if not for the third that amount, you will find other ways. They will not have a penny off. Do not beg any more useless. I'm angry, replied. It bowed, and quietly left the room. When it's gone, I opened the desk to make sure the treasure is still in there, and then I locked it. Done, toured all around the house to see if there is anything unusual. This task usually undertaken by Mary, but that night, I personally do it. When going down the stairs, I saw Mary standing at the front window. When I approached, it shut the window and carefully tucked. It seems a bit embarrassed to ask me. Accept 3, tonight 3 have allowed Lucy to go outside? Not. There have just returned through the back door. I'm sure she was going to meet a certain guy in a small shop next to the house. It is an indecent act at all. I saw maybe we have to stop this game of prediction. Bright tomorrow I tell her. I'm sure all doors have been closed carefully, fake it. Sure stomach. So, wish you good night. Mr. Holmes. Accept. I try to tell you all, do not forget a little detail that relates to this case. But if he does not find a clear spot, please just ask him again, do not be afraid at all. His narration another slab, obviously this. I did not say much sleep that night due to a latent anxiety in the mind, so I got more sleep problems. About 2 o'clock in the morning, an indoor noise startled me. It sounds completely silent when I awake, but I feel as if a window where it was closed very smoothly. I tried to listen. Suddenly, I jumped to his feet. Very light footsteps in the next room. I jumped off the bed and ran to open the door. Rice face wash. Arthur. I called. More oathang rascal. Thief. How dare you touch it, the crown. Besides, the pilot light was my turn down again early today. Assholes just wear shirts with long pants, his hands holding the crown. It looks like it is trying hard to twist or bend the crown back. Hear my cry. He let the crown fell to the floor, his face ashen. I picked up the crown up quickly and looked it. A gold corners, with 3-barrel jewel attached to it, have been chipped away. Scale disloyalty. I shouted angrily. You've ruined it already. So I end up being lifelong disgrace. You steal 3 gems, right? Steal? It repeated. Must. You did steal 3-barrel gem. I shouted, holding his shoulder, shaking. But we're missing any gems. Lack of 3 members. You and a guy lying, and a thief. -3 called you by the word that I cannot accept it. I cannot endure the insults of the 3 is more. Can will not say a word about it. I will leave the house of 3 and children to fend for themselves. You will leave my house between 2 policemen. I shouted angrily. This case will be brought to justice, I swear it. The will not say anything. It seems replied with a fierce which I never saw wear it. 3 had wanted to call the police, let the police work. Meanwhile, everyone in the house was awake. Mary was the first to run in, saw the crown and looked at Arthur's face. It anticipated the story. A voice cried out and collapsed to the floor, unconscious. I give her chambermaid to call the police. Later, an inspector and a policeman came. Arthur, who had remained motionless, arms crossed, looking exasperated, asked, "I intend to denounce it for theft or not?" I replied to him that this is no longer a private affair, and I wish the law is enforced strictly. At least, please do not let your catch 3 now. As well as the interests of the 3 children, please let the 3 go out for 5 minutes. Must whether you want to run away or hide some gems. Aware of all of my horrible situation, I implored him to remember that this can cause a terrible scandal, damaging effects to the national prestige of all the risks that go there unavoidable. It just let me know the 3 jewels now at the top. Children are old enough to be aware of all the importance of this case and look into it. You've been caught, not a confession that might reduce my sins are. But you could be forgiven by telling 3 gems that knows where. 3 will forgive all. -3 let for forgiveness for those who need it. Arthur turned his back on me and laughing near. Seeing no choice but to be more convincing, I had given him to the police inspector. With that, it was ransacked. Police also ransacked its own room and all the corners, crevices in the house. But still found nothing. And it still did not say a word. This morning, he was imprisoned, and I, following completion of all necessary procedures, I came running here. Currently, the police have admitted helplessness. Mr. Holmes, if they need to spend what, please feel free him, I have hung a £1,000 reward. Gosh! In just one night, I had lost all the honor and the only son. Oh, how now? He held his hands up, embracing face, shook through, shaking back, mouth mumbling nonsense words like a psychopath. Sherlock Holmes sat silent for a few minutes, brow furrowed, staring into the flames in the fireplace. "He has not typically seating?" Holmes asked. "I do not to anyone, other than the capital contribution and his family, or sometimes a friend of Arthur. George Benwell recent times have come to my house several times. Also, no one else. He has often played here and there to it. Arthur there. Mary and me at home. Both Mary and I both do not like going out. It was a strange thing for a teenager hungry. It has a quiet nature. Besides, it is also not a kid anymore, has 24 years old. Fall. According words he recounted, the incident has caused her a terrible fit of emotion, right? Right. Both she and he are no longer a little doubt about the guilt of his son? How about doubt when my eyes saw the crown in its hands? It is not a slip of the crime evidence. Are the rest of the crown is damaged? It must, a curvature. So he did not think his son is trying to rectify it or what? He is trying to do what can be done for it and for me. But it is a task too difficult. Why is it there? What to do? With the crown in hand? And if it's innocent, why does it not say, but kept silent? True. And if he is guilty, why do not you invent a lie instead of silence? In this case there are more law. About any noise woke him up, the police is like? The police say it may be due to noise caused Arthur when it closed its doors again. Very hard to believe. No one who was going to do a dishonest act again slammed his bedroom door to wake the others up. What about the 3 jewels? They continue to rummage in the house in the hope of finding them again. They have thought of looking outside the house without neck. All gardens have been meticulously reviewed, not missed a public place. Except him, this case is more complicated than he thought police at first. Would you please consider carefully his hypothesis? He said that his son had left his room to go into the room washing his face. An act so reckless, opening his desk, take the crown, use all your strength to break a small corner of it, then come out of the room, go to a certain place to hide 3 gems. And hiding in an ingenious way that no one can find. And then he's out to bring the remaining 36. Went back Pearl in office, where he very easily be detected. What? I ask him. Such an assumption does not stand firm. But, so, according to him, also any other assumptions? Mr. Banker exclaimed with a gesture of despair. But if its motives are sincere, why it did not tell me? The first thing is R will clarify this point. So, if he is willing, we will go to Streatham, in which we will consider carefully some of the details. Holmes asked me to go with you and Mr. Holder. I accepted immediately. Frankly, as well as Mr. Holder, I saw that the young man was clearly guilty. But trust accounts comment and speculate Holmes seldom wrong time. I still have some hope. At the beginning, Holmes rejected the simplistic assumptions about the sin of Arthur. Fairbank was a white stone houses, square-shaped, set slightly away from the road a bit. A fairly wide detour to two cars can run parallel to each other and a walkway that runs to two iron gate blocking the entrance. On the right side there is a smaller trees brought to the aisle between two hedgerows. This path leads to the kitchen door and the path for the servants. On the left there is a different path toward the barn. It runs winding region outside the house, and sometimes people nearby also followed this path. Holmes stopped in front of a large, slow travel around the house. He passed out the front of the house, walked down the aisle for maid and walked around the garden and then come up with walkways leading to the stables. What he saw no rush at all. Mr. Holder and I went into the dining room, waiting by the fireplace. We sat in silence for a while, then a young woman appeared. She was slightly higher than the average, a little, slim, blonde hair and dark eyes stand out on the white skin. Her face was pale lips and eyes expressing a silent pleading, but extremely earnest. When she entered the room with a quick gait and steady, I noticed her grief. Well, there a deeper part of his grief. Banker. Not interested in my presence, she went straight to the castle owners and put both hands on his face. 3 Wild Arthur told his people drop out yet? No, dear. Ulcers need to be removed. But I firmly believe that he is innocent. 3 No, a woman's intuition is rarely wrong. 3 will regret having proved too harsh. If it's innocent, why is it silent? Who can know it? Perhaps he was angry with the 3 were suspected him. Make 3 unsuspecting star it is. 3 eyes find it impressive that crown. Oh, he's just watch it. 3 children believe he is not guilty. 3 skip this one go. What a terrible thing to think that Arthur in prison. 3 will not ignore the case before finding some gems. Rather than ignore, 3 were invited from London about a talented detective will unravel all. 3 believe that. There is he here? Sist asked, looking into my eyes. No, his friend. Meanwhile, detectives are going round the path to the stables. Error goes to the stables. She arched black eyebrows up. He could find nothing there. Hope so, and perhaps he is. "Sir, I hope that he will prove his innocence, Arthur. I am convinced that he was an unjust accusation. I completely agree with her, and like her, I hope to prove his innocence," Holmes said, turning back to clean mat-clinging snowshoes. "Maybe I am being honored." Mary talked to her right. "She can allow me to ask you a few questions?" "Please," he just asked. "I really want this horrible secret is clear." Holmes her part. "She did not hear anything last night?" "No, until my uncle started shouting up. I must have been run down." When closing the doors and windows, she had carefully closed all the window. Neck. "Right now, all the windows that are closed but still?" "Yes. One chambermaid, she has a lover, right? And last night, she had let the boss know that she went out to meet him?" "Right. Now she's in the living room coffee maker. Perhaps she had heard my uncle talking about the crown." "I understand. She thought that she could have gone out to tell," the mistress said, "and both of which have arranged plans to steal the crown. But we also put forward the hypothesis that adventured to do. Hot Springs banker called Len because I said that I saw Arthur's eyes are holding the crown in the hands of that. Would you please be a bit patient? We have to come back to this hypothesis. The chambermaid, she was Miss Mary. She saw her return by the kitchen door into, right? Can you know him?" "Yes. His name was Francis Prosper." "You left me standing in the kitchen, that is a little bit far from the aisle?" Holmes asked. "Right. And he has a wooden leg?" A glimpse of fear shows up in the eyes of a maid. "Must whether he is a saint?" She smiled, exclaimed. "How do you know that?" But Holmes did not respond to her smile. He continued. "I consider upstairs. And maybe I'll look back all around the house again. But before upstairs, perhaps I should look into the windows of the downstairs." He quickly went from window to another window and paused for a moment before a large window looking out to the barn aisle included. He opened it and used a magnifying glass to consider very carefully the banks of windows. "Good. Now we can go upstairs," finally he said. Washrooms of bankers is a small room fully furnished. It has a grey carpet, a large desk and a rectangular mirror. Holmes approached the desk and stared at the locks. "He does usually open it with the key?" "Cheap key that my son was just. The key to the room's closet unused for more furniture." "It have it here?" "It is on the table." Holmes took the key and opened the paper table. The key did not make a sound at all. Therefore, an open space-out desk that still does not make him wake up. "Make the boxes contain the crown?" "He allowed me to see it a bit." He opened the box, took it on the table crown. One end of the crown bent and broken, one containing 3 gems corner cracked away. Mr. Holder, here is the angle symmetrical with the angle was missed. I can ask him to try to break them? Banker's terror stepped back. Not. I cannot do that. So, I'll try. Holmes took a break off the power, but not the result. I make it just a little bit slightly bent. He calmly comment. But even though my fingers strong it might be, I could not break it. But, he just examples that I break it off, it will emit a cry pretty big, almost bang of a pistol found it. And if such a noise that emits only a few meters from his bed, yet he cannot hear anything? I like people are in the dark. There would all unravel if we continue. Miss Mary, you think? I do not know. Think again. His son not wearing shoes at all, when he saw him. I only have a supra shirts and long trousers. Thank you, sir. We are an extraordinarily good tomorrow, so if we do not clarify the problem, it's our fault. Holmes out alone, to work in an hour, then returned to the house with 2 feet of snow and adhesive exiled cold face a confusing. Accept him, now, the best thing that I can do to help him, was back home but also some gems? I cannot speak. The banker wrung his hands together. So that I'll never see them again, he cried. And my son? I still do not change my mind about him. So, I implore you, ask him to explain. It's like, if tomorrow morning, he can come to my house, in the range of 9 to 10 hours, I will explain to him clearly all. Does he have given me full authority to spend as long as 3 to recover the jewel? I willing to spend a fortune. Very good. Now I take care of it. Hello, sir. In the return trip, I am looking questioningly, but Holmes answered very indifferently. We got home before 3 o'clock. Holmes ran into the room. A few minutes later he came out, disguised as a waiter, collar and wear heeled shoes. As this is okay, he said, just watching myself in the mirror. In this case, it may be my assumption correct, but I would be a mistake. Anyway, then I'll know it's arc. He cut a slice of roast beef, sandwiched it between 2 pieces of bread and leave. When he returned, I just drank teacup. You look perky clear. He took an old shoe's top rope, swinging it back and forth and then throw it into a corner of the room. I poured a cup of tea for him. Where? Oh, at the other end of the West End. And I do not know what time I'll be back. So you do not need to wait for me. There are no prospects? Not bad. I went to Streatham, but not at home. This service has a very interesting little problem. Well, I only had just enough time to change. Through these words seem a bit vague him, I know he has achieved very positive results. Wait until late, have not seen him. I went to bed. I do not know about what time Holmes, but this morning, when the living room down to breakfast, I saw him sitting there ever since, refreshed and energetic, this hand holding a newspaper, the other a cup cafe. Sorry did not wait for him to eat, but we have an appointment with a client, and now has more than 9. Really, it seems I have just heard a bell ring. It is true that my financial house, but only had one night that he would languish. He entered the room with a tired and dull. I pushed a chair to him and he immediately plopped down. Don't know what I have done so guilty. 2 days ago, I was a prosperous and happy people. But today I was the most miserable person in the world. Numerous single painting, she was gone already. Mary away already? Must this morning. It empty room, on a table with a letter. Yesterday, in a fit of grief, I have to add that all of this tragic story will not happen if before it consent to marry Arthur. In the letter, it mentions that reproaches. My very dear child's physician. You see that I am the cause of the disaster to the doctor, that if you have more than you act the disaster that did not happen. With this thought in mind obsessed, I will never be able to be happy in the house, doctor, any more. Better that you should forever farewell, physician. Please, physicians, do not worry for the future of children. I do not lack anything particular. Please do not seek a doctor, which waste time in vain. Whether alive or dead, forever I still love her, physician Mary. Mr. Holmes, Mary had not committed suicide? Not. She chose the best solution. Mr. Holder, his woes coming to an end now. Mr. Think £1,000 for each jewel is an amount too large? I willing to pay 10,000 dong. No need that. Just £3,000. Plus a small bonus amount again, right? Here, pen here. He just wrote a check for £4,000, then everything will go all right. Bankers overjoyed, hands trembling, write the check. Holmes went to his desk, took out a small triangular piece of gold with 3 gems mounted beryl and threw it on the table. It's here. He had found it. Bankers who stammer. I survived it. Escape it. He clasped his chest gems. He owed something else, Mr. Holder. Holmes said with a stern look. I owed? He asked again, just picked up a pen. Tell me how much. I'm happy to pay. No, he does not owe me anything. But he must earnestly apologize to his son. It was a noble soul. In this case, he has acted brave and noble. Arthur did not steal the stars. I told you yesterday, and I said to him today, no. Are you sure? So let's run to prisons or tell it. Both you'd know. After finding out the truth, I went to the jail to talk to him. Because he refused to open his mouth, so I told him to know everything. He recognized my true inference. And he explained a few details still slightly dim. The news about her Mary says he will make all things work for him to know. I beg you, ask him to speak out to me. Yes. But I have to start with the most painful thing for him. The culprit is Mary and George Benwell. Now they've fled already. The baby you cannot have that. Con rather, this is not something can or cannot, but this is a true story. Both he and his son did not understand the nature of George Benwell. It is one of the most dangerous people in the UK, a gambler down and out, a rebellious thugs, a man without a conscience. His niece absolutely do not know anything about him. When he started flirting with her, as he was flirting with hundreds of women before her, Mary was flattered, thinking that she was the first and also the only one who makes hearts flutter him synchronously too. Only the devil knows what that little thug's to Mary. There is definitely something in his arms. She became a toy. Almost every night and stealthily two met. I do not believe, cannot believe it. Bank boss shouted, his face grey as ash. Good. Then I'll tell him what had happened at home through the night. When he went into his room, then Mary sneaked out of the room to her and standing by a window overlooking the walkway leading to the stables and talked to the mistress standing outside. Man's footprints in the snow clearly printed dishonesty during he stood near the window. Mary had told him the crown. Dirty man's greed and instant uprising why convince her stolen treasures. Just listening to the words that seduce, Mary suddenly saw him walking down the stairs, her purse, and closed the window and told him about her chambermaid. As for his son, after he was not asking for money, he returned to his room lying awake, your mind because of debt worries. At midnight, he heard light footsteps coming through your door. He sat up, looked into the hallway and was surprised to see Mary go into his restroom. Suspicions. He immediately rushed to the man wearing a shirt and trousers and stood crouched in the dark. A moment later, Mary appeared in the light of lamp placed in the corridor, and he clearly took the crown. She went downstairs. Terrified, he ran to hide behind a curtain, near his bedroom door. There, he saw the girl open the window slightly larger, given a crown for those who are outside, then quickly shut the window and returned to his room. Until Mary was still standing there, Arthur cannot do anything without notoriety whom he loved. But when she was gone, he ran down the stairs with bare feet. He opened the big window, jumped out and threw himself on the snow walkway leading to the stables. In front of him, looming shadow of a man running, George Benwell tried to flee, but Arthur had approached him. The two men fighting, the first he's holding a crown and holding the Department of Conguy the other end. His son beat the thugs a heavy wound above the eye. Then suddenly a dry crack sounded. His son was startled to find himself the Crown duo, ran back home, closed the door, climbed to his washrooms. It is then that he noticed the crown was bent and tried bending it straight back. He appeared. There could thus? The banker whispered. And then, he has made you angry with taunts badly.